Today we have another amazing cybersecurity hero, or yeah, you all know him as a hero. It's the only one, Tiberius. So say hi to each other.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. And yeah, I think you all know how the procedure is, or how I do it mostly. So let's just dive into the questions and let's hear the story behind Tiberius. So, the first question, if you remember, when was your very first hack ever?
Right. um, I guess this is considered a hack. So I used to play video games as a kid, PC games especially. There was one, I think it was the Pirates of the Caribbean game, and you had to you'd get a really crappy boat at the start and basically go off pirating, get your gold, pay your crew, upgrade your boat, etc. But obviously, young Tibbs was a bit impatient, so I started looking through the game files, and I found where they set the the starting money, and so I changed that and restarted my game, and suddenly I was like a billionaire. So I had like an armada of ships. So technically, I think that's hacking.
You you were like, I don't want a bow, give me a gun.
Right. Yeah, that's probably like my first sort of like delving into really just, I guess, maliciously using software. Finding a config option that the developers really didn't intend anyone to change. But other than that, I think probably back in my teens, like I believe I used an SQL injection against something. Like one of my friends would be like, "Oh, you can just type this in here and get like you can update your status to whatever you want on some web app." And so stupidly, I just tried it and it worked. And but yeah, this is back in the day when nobody cared.
When there was no security at all.
Right, exactly. And so it was like a stupid like online game. So hardly anything was affected, but it's probably my first hack.
It seems to me that you really played a lot of games early.
Yeah, and I still do.
I think everyone plays games. I think I can't say for true, but I think many of us who are watching right now, yeah, they do play games. It's a part of our life, so I think.
For sure.
But thank you for answering that question. And for the second question, did you went to college, or did you learn most of the things that you know right now, watching YouTube, reading books, or yeah?
That's a good question. I think initially, I learned a lot from books. So I entered the industry in, was it 2011? It's about 10 years ago now. So there was still some recently published books like Web App Hacker's Handbook, which I could read. And YouTube was a thing, but I don't think the hacking community on YouTube was much of a thing. So a lot of it was books, blog posts, and honestly just experience from other team members. Like I joined a company as a junior pen tester and basically just sort of just sat next to the seniors, and whenever they did something I'd be like, can you show me how you did that?
It's
and
funny.
Most of the time they would, so it's good.
It's funny you mentioned it, as I'm currently in the same situation that you were back then, as I just started my full-time job as junior pen testing right now, and I'm working with someone who has a lot of experience already, and I think I will be like you when he does something. Like how did you do it?
Definitely. Exactly, and honestly, you should ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask them, because, I mean, the worst they're going to say is no, stop pestering me, which they honestly shouldn't, because their goal should be to get you from a junior to whatever the next level is up. I don't know what they call them these days.
Veteran.
Right. So they're really shooting themselves in the foot if they refuse to help. So yeah, definitely ask questions. If you can show, like, ask them how to just like to demo it. If they got a shell some way, then definitely ask how to demo that, so you can try and replicate it.
Well, thank you for answering that question. I will definitely take this with me, and I will definitely ask the questions. Luckily, he already tells me many times each day that if you are stuck, ask me. If you're stuck, ask me. If you're stuck, ask me. So yeah, I think I am safe if I ask him too much. But yeah, from your answer, it is clear that you didn't go to college at all.
No, I did.
Oh, you did, and
so yeah.
If
so
you
oh,
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
If you remember, did you hack something during your college years, or was that the SQL injection you thought about?
So I did computer science, and then I did a master's in information security. So I was definitely hacking during the master's, because like penetration testing was one of the modules. So we got to play around with a bunch of exploits. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of hacking going on, but at the same time, mostly just hacking my own stuff, like setting up Linux and messing around with those kind of things. So that was a big part of it.
And did you also accidentally hacked something of your college, like the system, or perhaps you did an mmap scan on the network, and suddenly all printers going wild on school, and they think, what is happening?
We never did that. I think it may have been discussed at one point, like, should we do something like that? And then like everyone was like, yeah, no, probably don't want to get kicked out of college. So we stayed. We were good people. we stayed white hat for that bit.
You were that guy on the poster behind you with the green market.
Yes.
Well, for the next question, yeah, at which age did you knew that, okay, I'm going to join the InfoSec world? Now is the time that I want to follow this path.
That's a good question. I think I was probably 21. Because I originally just did computer science at university because that was what I was passionate about. I didn't really know exactly where I would go with that. And in I think it was my first year of university, like halfway through the year, they say, okay, well, next year you can minor in something, and here are the options, and information security was one of them. And so I went to the talk they gave about what information security was all about. And the university I went to actually has a pretty good InfoSec department. So it's got a bunch of like crypto people who, if you saw their name, you would know, oh, okay, yeah, that guy wrote that algorithm. So that intrigued me. So I decided, you know what, I'll minor in information security. And from there, it just like took off. So that was pretty much where I knew my career was going to go, which is why I came back after I graduated and got an MSc in it.
Well, thank you for answering that question. And yeah, I always ask this question when I have people who went to college. It's your opinion, so no wrong or good. But yeah, do you say that college did help you with building your career, or did you say like, I learned more by reading books than I went to classes?
Um, I think I'm honestly the the worst person to ask this because my career in cybersecurity is so bizarre. Um, College definitely helped, like because if you have a bachelor's or a master's on your resume, then it's going to look good. Um, at the same time, I I kind of stumbled into information security as the industry. Like I have no like IT experience. Like I didn't spend like 2 3 years as a sysadmin or in a SOC. Um, I my first job was doing like security research for a small company, and I did that for 9 months. And I kind of also did pen testing for them as well, sort of as a side project. Um, and then I got my first junior pen tester job. So I mean, I don't think I'm not entirely sure that's possible these days, like because there's so much more structure now around cybersecurity. Um, and you see ridiculous things like, oh, a junior penetration tester needs 4 years experience. It's like, wow. So,
Yeah, I always hate
4 years
those.
experience in what? Like,
Yeah, I
um,
always hate those
so I
companies.
mean, it
That
definitely
does it.
helped. But I don't think if you were to ask me like, oh, would you recommend getting a degree to get into cybersecurity? I wouldn't know how to answer that these days. Like it's sure it's nice to have, but at the same time, I've met people who don't have degrees who, in my opinion, like way way better at what they do than I am. So
Yeah,
so
it's
it really depends. There's certainly nowadays, like compared to 10 years ago, there's so much more content online um, that you can learn from.
yeah.
Um,
You have try
just
hack
on
me
YouTube.
like the
Yeah,
books.
exactly. But like even just YouTube, there's so much more. But yeah, you've got Try Hack Me, you've got Hack the Box, you've got Portswigger Web Academy.
Yeah, you have so much.
So yeah, it's crazy. So and unfortunately, the problem is you have to change the attitude of hiring. I think so. It may be that if you have a degree, that's going to boost you above people who don't, even though you may have a lot of experience from actually doing um, real world stuff, or at least pseudo real world stuff, right? With
Yeah,
Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. Um, so it's something that has to sort of change at the HR level, I think.
yeah. I think you're right. But I see still many companies asking like, yeah, people who are just graduate from college, they still ask them to have 5 or 6 year of experience, and then I think, how can someone get 5 or 6 year experience if they always get refused because they don't have
Right.
experience? So yeah, they keep walking in a circle or in a loop for each loop 100
Yeah.
times, and then they finally can perhaps find a job. But thank you for
I
answering the
always tell
question. Oh, yeah,
I always tell people if the job list is just an X year's experience, just ignore it and apply anyway. Because
yeah,
the worst thing they can do is say, "Oh, you don't have the experience." But the best thing they can do is that the experience thing was put on there by someone in HR to try and get like a different kind of talent, and the person who's actually doing the hiring doesn't care about it at all. So I know I would definitely just apply anyway. Like you don't lose anything by applying to jobs.
no, I think I totally agree with you. You should at least apply, and yeah, you have a no, and you can get a yes. So
Mhm.
thank you for answering that question. Let's go to the following one. Now, I think many of us who are watching the stream right now, we all know that you also have your own stream and you do it a lot. When did you knew you want to start with streaming, and how did you start it with streaming?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I do it a lot. I definitely need to get back into it. I started streaming. I think I did some streams in 2020, um, and mostly just Portswigger Web Academy stuff and Try Hack Me. And then this year I had more time because I was between jobs. so I started streaming a bit more. And I don't know, I enjoy it. I think it's kind of cathartic. It's nice to just focus on something and at the same time be motivated to do it because you are effectively kind of performing. So, like sometimes I'll go to Portsmouth Web Academy and I'm like, right, I'm gonna do this challenge, and then I'll do it for half an hour and I'll be like, I don't want to do this anymore. But if you're streaming, it's like, oh, I better actually finish this because I have a bunch of people watching me learning stuff.
Yeah, I have the exact same feeling.
Right. So yeah, I like doing it. I think it's good. And I got into it mostly because one of my friends from InfoSec, you interviewed him, Al Hazred. He's a big streamer, so I'm like,
yeah, I talked with him.
I'm in his shadow, and I'm like, he does some good, but he does crazy streams. Like I'm not sure I could stream for like 4 or 5 hours at a time. I think I'd run out of things to say, and he puts on the persona of a cult leader. I mean, at least I assume it's a persona. Maybe he is a cult leader. But, so
I hope
he's
he's
like
not
way
watching.
more acting, and I'm like, no, man, that's like, is this high level? And I'm like, okay, let's just try hack me boxes, and I'll try and explain what I'm doing.
Yeah, I talked to him a week or two ago. Yeah, it was a crazy talk. And I'm the same like you. I also do track me because I somehow can manage to explain it. But if I need to explain like what he is doing, yeah, then I think, oh, that's a little bit too high level for me. But yeah, it's nice that you try to do stream to track me, as many people want people like you explaining the basic things, like how they need to get started somewhere. So it's nice to have people like you explaining those things. So keep going with what you are doing, and
Thank you.
your streams are great. So for my next question, you kindly answered it already in the previous question, but how did you came up with the idea of, okay, now I'm going to start YouTube, now I'm going to start Twitch, and now I'm going to stream?
Yeah, I think it was mostly people suggesting it. The first thing I really did in the community was the auto recon tool. So that was a tool I wrote like 2 years ago now for effectively automating enumeration on OSCP exam stuff. So that was the first kind of thing I did, and then from that, people started asking about privilege escalation. So I created 2 Udemy courses on privilege escalation, which obviously got me into like video editing, because that was a huge amount of work, just writing slides, writing scripts, filming it, editing it, putting it all together. And so that kind of introduced me to the whole like video production kind of thing, which is obviously then slides into YouTube. And I figured I could like at least try and put some content on YouTube and Twitch at the same time. I kind of cheat because most of my YouTube videos are just Twitch streams that I've just cut the ends off. But I am planning some just YouTube content. So hopefully that'll happen this year as well. But the ideas really all come from the community, people reaching out and saying, hey, you should create a video on this, or you should do a stream on this.
Well, it's nice that you have started, and if you are cheating with the YouTube, then I'm also cheating, as I also just start Twitch and I save the entire stream to YouTube. No editing at all. Just I just put it to YouTube. But now I am not feeling lonely, as you are also doing it. So I belong to the party. No. But thank you for answering that question. I saw on your Twitter that you mainly focus on web application hacking. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into this part of your life. can you tell us more about, why are you focusing more on web app than, for example, networking or mobile, or why web hacking?
So I think early on, so when I'd been a junior for a bit and I was like upgraded to, I don't know what we called it, regular pen tester, I don't know. I was doing a bunch of assessments. So I would do externals, internals, web application pen tests, the occasional mobile. And I think I noticed that web applications was becoming like more of the brunt of the testing. And customers were creating web applications for basically everything. So remember, this is back in what 2020? No, sorry, 2012 or 2013. So like prior to that, if a company wanted to create their own like app for their workers to use, they would usually create a thick client, and it would communicate with the server. And it just became easier with all the web app technologies that kept getting released to create a web app instead, because everyone has the browser. And so immediately you really don't have to worry about the interface, really. It's just HTML code. So there was kind of like an explosion of web applications being released, and obviously when you have web applications that are coded by people who really probably haven't coded web applications before, you're going to introduce tons of security vulnerabilities. And so that's when I decided, okay, well, I'm going to kind of focus my career, and basically try and become like an SME in web apps. So that was really when I decided to do it. I think it worked out because web apps have just continually got more complicated. And new technologies are released almost every month, I think, for certain types of things. So,
every week, perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that question. What are you mostly looking for at first? Like, what kind of low-hanging fruits are you, mostly targeting if you pen test a web application?
That's a good question, actually. I mean, the first thing you do is you enumerate the application. That's kind of like, if you don't know what you're looking at, then you can't really tell what you're going to look for. So enumerating it is key. Usually when I do a web app pen test, I have multiple sets of user accounts. So the first thing I would do is log into the application and just play around with it for a bit. So not really actively testing, but just going through, seeing exactly what I can do in terms of functionality. Obviously making notes on that kind of stuff, proxying everything through burp, so I can go back and look. Often I'll have it on like two screens. So I'll have the web app on my primary screen and burp on another screen, and I can actually watch the requests live and flag any that look like they might contain like interesting stuff. But other than that, like low-hanging fruit stuff, it's like stuff like files that they've just left on the system. There's a good one. So obviously using like a directory busting tool, like dir-search, you can find quite fun files sometimes. You can find sometimes you can find like a .git repo, which is just literally like you can then just use Git Rubber, I think.
Always Git
and download it, right? And then you get the source code, which is even better.
And then you can start source code analysis.
Exactly. But yeah, there's tons of stuff that are really, really low hanging. Configuration issues are just huge. Like hardly anyone has like their CORS header configured properly, or like SSL configured properly. So there's tons of things like that. Cookies, another one.
Oh,
like
amazing.
there's so many things you can configure on cookies these days, and hardly any of them are done properly. So obviously a lot of the time it really depends if you can find XSS, because obviously that's the main thing you want to do with a cookie. But certainly those are the vulnerabilities that we always tend to put in reports. And I guess another big one is using like third-party JavaScript libraries,
Yeah.
which people don't fully understand the impact of, um, because it's just become like an industry standard to, instead of hosting the code yourself, you just it's on a CDN somewhere. It's like, that's great, except what happens when the CDN gets hacked and suddenly the JavaScript code that's embedded on 100,000 sites is
Yeah.
updated to
Same.
contain a freaking cryptocurrency miner. Yeah, so that's and that honestly that's even an easier solution these days. You don't even have to host it. You can just grab the hash of the file and put it in an attribute in the script tag itself. There's like, but most modern browsers have a way where you can pass like an integrity check to that script. So the browser will calculate the hash of the script that it downloads and then make sure it matches the one you've given it in the attribute. And if it doesn't match, it won't run it, which is, a good solution at least, but really you should just be hosting it yourself.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Or it will happen that 35 companies get hacked because npm of a library has been infected, and yeah, they just download it without checking. But yeah, checking for thank you for answering that question. You were talking about Burp. Yeah, what kind of add-ons are you mostly using in Burp, or
Oh man,
extensions? Probably too much.
If anyone has seen my full extension list loaded on a stream, which I think I have done, I don't know. I think I use over 30 of them.
30? Oh.
Not all at once, but like I generally have them all loaded just in case, because otherwise it's just annoying trying to find it. If you ask for a top 10, I could probably give a top 10.
Yeah, sure.
Not in any particular order, but Hackverter is one, which is insanely powerful tool for basically converting text between different encodings. Authmatrix is in the top 5. And I understand Authmatrix is like impossible to use, so it has the steepest learning curve of any extension I've ever come across. But it's so really good. If you want to do any kind of authorization testing on more than 2 accounts, then Authmatrix is the one you want to use. I think Param Miner is another good one. That's done by who is it? James Kettle. So James Kettle works for Portswigger, and he's the guy who basically blew up web app hacking like a couple of years ago with HTTP request smuggling. So he really knows his stuff. But Param Miner is a great extension for finding hidden parameters, and it can find them anywhere. It can find them in URLs, headers, cookies. Even like inside JSON objects, so it's great. How many is that? 3. All right, I gotta come up with 2 more.
You can do it.
Try not to mention my own, because I'll come across bad. Right, let me think.
Try harder.
Trying to think of them off the top of my head there, because I usually just click the tab, and I'm like, I don't even look at the name. I'm guessing the HTTP request smuggler one is pretty fun. So that's like literally the best way of just finding request smuggling vulnerabilities these days, is just load that extension and fire it off. So that's another one by James Kettle. Let me think. Actually, you know what? I'm going to throw in Logger++. There's 2 logging extensions in Burp, as far as I'm aware. One's Flow and one is Logger++. And Flow I used for years, and I don't know why it just doesn't work in the same way, but Logger++ effectively is a massive log of every single request that Burp sent, regardless of the tool that sent it. So it's pretty much like the proxy pane, except if the repeater requests and intruder requests and scanner requests were all in there as well. So that's really good, and it also has a really powerful search functionality. So you can search through requests uh, based on pretty much anything in the request. So yeah, I think that's a good top five. It's gonna change in like 2 weeks, so
I will
there'll
ask
be
in
switches.
I will ask in 2 weeks again.
Yeah, right.
No, but yeah, thank you for answering that question. Yeah, you really do a lot of web hacking. Are you also planning to dive deeper in bug bounty, perhaps? As bug bounty also kind of web hacking mostly.
Yeah, I've done some bug bounties, mostly on like points programs, um, and I've delved a little into it. My main problem is time. Like
We all have
I've
time
got
problems.
I've got so I got so many things. Like it's like yeah, I don't have the time for bug bounty stuff. I might get back into it at some point, but it's interesting. I know some people who've had some great success with it. So yeah, I think I might try it again at some point. Um, but it really depends. Some of the programs like HackerOne who don't give you points even if you find duplicates are kind of demoralizing. So I've stuck to BugCrowd, which at the very least, if you find a duplicate, they usually give you points for it.
Yeah,
Um,
didn't knew that.
and points at least contribute to your rank, so that's kind of nice. But yeah, I found a few things like I said, mostly on points programs, and I found a critical like P1, which was a duplicate of a paid
Oh,
program. That was like
sucks.
great. Yeah, that was like okay, fine then.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Yeah.
You think, yes, I have one, and then, oh no, duplicate. Oh. Well, thank you for answering that question. Let's go to the following one. Yeah, if you are doing a web application penetration test for your company, yeah, do you have a kind of methodology you use every time if you approach a web application?
Yeah, I do. It's more. I think the problem is if your methodology should be flexible. Um, apps are all completely different, um, and so it really depends. I think if anyone says, "Oh, there's this standard way of going through an app," like you just never get anywhere. Like I've read through the OWASP web app methodology, and I've tried. I put it to myself to try it on a test once, and like there's just like by the time you're done with all the enumeration that they tell you to do, it's like okay, half the test's over. It's like it's gone. It's like why this is ridiculous. Um, I think the key to is finding a balance between how much you want to enumerate the app and how much you want to attack the app, and I think that's really the key takeaway. Um, and any methodology should like have a massive disclaimer at the top. Like, uh, there are so many ways you can enumerate stuff on web apps, especially if you don't have access to the source code. So at some point, you just have to stop and say, okay, I'm probably not going to find any other things. Um, so my my main thing is like doing like I said, logging into the app and basically going through it and trying to find as many things as possible in terms of functionality, try and understand the functionality, and making mental notes and physical notes about what I'm seeing. Like if I see an upload form, for instance, that's obviously going to be tested at some point, right? You want to make sure you can't upload anything malicious. And the same thing if you can like set data and the data gets returned to you. You want to check for XSS, you want to check for SQL injection. So it's really that kind of thing. Obviously, doing directory busting just to see if they've left any weird files or admin access somewhere else is always worth doing. If you have time and you find some interesting looking requests, then you can try param miner just to see if there's anything that you can grab out of it. I found an interesting bug bounty that way. So that was kind of cool. But
I hope no
I think
duplicate.
that one wasn't actually. That was good. Um, but yeah, it's really a balance. Once you've done your enumeration, once you have a good understanding of the app, start attacking it. Start going after all the requests that you saw that you thought, okay, well, maybe this like X, Y, and Z might work, so I'll try that. And obviously, a big thing is especially if you have an app with multiple roles, is doing the authorization testing, because that's a huge part. That you can definitely stick to a methodology on, and the methodology is pretty simple. It's go through all the requests with the highest privileged account, and then swap out all the cookies with a lower privileged account and see what works. Um,
Seems good.
and like I said, I'm like, it is honestly that easy. It's like you may have to update a few things. You may have to update cross-site request forgery tokens, for instance. But it's pretty much that simple of an attack. So there's not really much to it. Where it gets tricky is if you have 20 different accounts and they all have different permission systems. And that's where Automatrix comes in. And that's why it's worth to learn. I'll put a video up on YouTube about it at some point, because it really is an insanely powerful tool if you know how to use it properly. And I'm reckoning a lot of people don't, and it confuses people with the whole chaining thing. So I'll probably put a video up on that at some point.
Well, thank you for answering that question. I think we all want to see that video coming soon. We can't wait for it, of course. Yeah, for my next question, besides Burpsuit, GoBuster, and all the usual tools that you probably use for web application hacking, what kinds of other tools do you mostly use when you are targeting a web application, besides the default ones?
Good question. Burp is like the main one, obviously.
Yeah.
And choice of browser, I usually go with Chromium. Firefox works as well. The reason I usually choose Chromium, at least historically, is at my previous job, we tested a huge company that it was like an e-commerce thing, and they had websites in like 50 different countries.
Ooh.
And so one day I'd be testing a Polish website, and the next week I'd be testing something from Saudi Arabia. And Chromium, as far as I'm aware, has like the auto translate in it, which works great. Firefox, I think you have to install an extension. It just didn't work as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to use Chromium. Usually I'll use Firefox for everything, but Chromium tends to be the better if you're doing that kind of stuff. So and that is a tool. So browser's definitely an important tool, and it's probably more important than Burp, but it's definitely important. Other than that, really, I mean, I could list so many of them, but they're all context dependent. There are some apps where I'll test them and I won't use anything other than Chrome and Burp, because Burp Scanner doesn't flag anything particularly weird. Intruder payloads aren't firing anything at all. Like you might like whip out SQL map and try for some of that, but generally speaking, if you're not finding any evidence or any indication of vulnerability from within Burp, then there's not going to be much use in terms of like time wise to try it with another tool. But if you do find indication of like SQL map, then I would leave Burp immediately and just fire up SQL map. So stuff like that. Mmap is a pretty good one still. Mmap has some scripts for HTTP, which are probably worth running. So I guess you can do that. And obviously, if you're testing SSL and TLS configurations, which a lot of people want to do with web apps, there's a script called testssl.sh, which is really good. So that'll basically just run through a bunch of tests and spit out a report at the end. So that's kind of useful. But for most of my, I would say like 99% of the testing is just done using a web browser and Burp.
Well, thank you for answering the question. Yeah, Burp and of course web browser. that I think use everyone when they are targeting web application. But it's nice to hear that you are also using other tools. But yeah, that depends on the situation, as you already mentioned. Yeah, for my next question, what was your last certification that you obtained, if you have any, if you
The
remember?
last one.
Yeah, the last obtained certification.
The last one was the Certified Red Team Professional, CRTP. I got that last year. That was good. I recommend it. I think Joe Helly has recently got it, and he wrote a great blog post about it on medium.com. And I pretty much agree with him and what he says about it. It's a great cert. It's for the money anyway. It's like $249.
Yeah.
For 30 days of labs, and really you only need 30 days of labs. The course materials are great. There's like 24 hours of videos, and you get all the slides as well. You'll learn a hell of a lot about Active Directory. So it's a big AD course. And then the exam is just like the stuff of nightmares. So especially the first host. I'm not sure if it's changed recently. My feedback was make the first host easier because it's just insane. But without going into too much detail, after you've got the first host, the others kind of like start falling. So like it's easier, but definitely a challenging exam, and it'll make you think in maybe slightly different ways than you've been used to. So definitely worth taking.
Well, thank you for answering this question. Yeah, I remember C2P. I also did the exam, and yeah, the first machine is it was a nightmare indeed.
Yes. Let's not talk about it more.
No. Let's forget the nightmare. Let's think about flowers. Yeah, how was the journey? Besides, of course, the material that you obtain from them, did you also, perhaps followed another course besides it, or after the lab was done, did you perhaps read a book to prepare, or did you just went to the exam?
Yeah, I took a longer break between the exam, between finishing the course and the exam, and I just basically I read a ton of blog posts on stuff. So I compiled all my commands into like a cheat sheet, which I try to do as often as I can, just so I have like a nice reference. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. So that was mostly my prep. I figured, I have no qualms about failing. I'll give it a good go. And yeah, it was tough, but like I said, once you get the first host,
it's falling.
Pretty much you can get all the others. I remember the last host being slightly trickier than the others, but it fell in the end, so that was good.
I know it. Yeah. Well, thank you for answering that question. Yeah, for my next question, you probably heard about the new certifications from Offensive Security, the OSEP and the OSET with a D. Are you planning to go for one of them or both, or?
I might go for the web one, not none of the new ones, but the web app one. I haven't done that one yet, and it seems interesting, so I might go for that. But like I went for OSCP mostly. Like I went for OSCP after being in the industry as a pen tester for like 7 years, so it wasn't like I actually needed it. It was more like, oh, everyone's got it, and everyone says it's a really good exam, so I should probably at some point get that. So that was mostly just doing it for me to say I had it. But obviously, like I know OSEP is the advanced pen testing one. Yeah. So I mean, I don't really do network pen testing. Like
you only focus on web.
Yeah, I'm like 99% web app these days. So if I was gonna do that, it would be purely for like academic reasons, and I might do it at some point. But I prefer to focus on web and just stay in my little web world.
Your burp. Burpee
Yeah,
burp.
leave the network stuff to other people.
Well, that's fine, of course. Yeah, you can specialize in web, so yeah. Well, thank you for answering that question. I have 3 more questions to go. Then we are going to the questions of shame. Yeah, how do you manage your time between your full-time job, making videos, learning? Probably you also learn probably in your free time, and whatever hobbies you have more besides it. How do you manage your time?
I don't.
Everyone says that.
I just coast. No, that's a good question as well, because yeah, it's time management is one of my definite weaknesses. So like I'll usually try and plan stuff and plan days ahead of like, what I want to be doing, especially if I'm going to be streaming. Because I want to at least plan the stream so I don't just turn it on and like have absolutely no idea what I'm going to be doing that day. But yeah, I think just honestly just planning ahead is what I do. So and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't I like a flexible work schedule, so work is pretty fun. I can work whenever I want to, really. But yeah, other than that, I really need to get better at time management, making videos and stuff. But yeah, if people have tips for me, that would be great.
Well, if you watched my last stream with Katie, the bug bounty hunter, she mentioned an application she used to manage her time.
I'll have to watch it. I like Katie; she's fun.
I don't know how it's called, but it was something with time. Yeah, I don't know. It was an application on your phone, and you could add projects or tasks you need to do, and it will sound an alarm when the task is going to start. So perhaps it's something for you.
Okay.
I don't know. Perhaps it can be helpful.
Yeah, I'll try it out.
For my next question, yeah, is there something in the past that you regret, and if you had the chance, you want to redo it?
So that is a good question.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Building the Star Destroyer or the Empire fleet.
I guess I would probably like to have studied more at like school, like this kind of stuff. I was kind of like all over the place in my earlier years, so which is probably why I didn't know what I was going to be doing until like I actually attended college. So I think going back then and sort of trying to focus myself, I might be in a better position today. Yeah, that's probably my answer. I have a lot of regrets about early school sort of stuff.
I think I see many things in you that I remember about my own too. I would answer the same answer on this question. I regret also I didn't pay attention on college. I was more into gaming. But yeah, thank you for answering that question. Let's go to the final question. Yeah, for those who are watching right now, if they want to become a penetration tester or web application penetration tester, do you have any advice for them? Where can they start, or how can they start, or any suggestions?
Yeah. Like I said before, I'm probably the worst person to ask for this. But I think honestly, as long as you're passionate about it and you can show that passion, you're going to get recognized in an interview. So definitely, if it's something that you're passionate about, and passionate about for the right things, not just because for the money or something, you actually get excited about security and you get excited about attacking applications or networks, and you spend hours a day just learning, or watching a YouTube video about something, or hacking a box on Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, and you can process that, what you've learned, so it's in your head, so that when you're in an interview, if someone asks a question that's related to that thing, you can at least, maybe you can't answer the question fully, but you can at least show that you're so passionate about security that you understand like around the question. So I've interviewed people who in some interviews you might say they'd failed, but their attitude towards how they answered questions was like, it showed the passion, right? It showed that I don't really understand what you were asking about, but that's something I'm really interested in. I'm also interested in these fields, which are kind of related, so it's definitely something I need to go away and research more. So I think passion is kind of underrated in an interview. I try to look for it whenever I'm given the chance to like interview someone. So I think that's important. But obviously experience as well. Experience doesn't have to be work experience. If you've hacked 60 boxes on Hack the Box and you've done it properly, that's experience, and there's no shame in mentioning that. If you've gone through Portswigger Web Academy and you've completed like half of their challenges, there's no shame in mentioning that as well. So and even if you've done CTFs, if you placed 27th in a CTF once, that's still 27th out of possibly like 1,000 people that were competing. So it's all experience at the end of the day, and you should be proud to actually mention it. Not all experience has to be paid.
Well, thank you for that clear answer. I hope the viewers will do something with it. Let's go to the final questions, the 5 questions of shame. Let's go with the first one. Here it comes. Which hero will you be? You can choose any hero you want. Science fiction, comics, movies, books.
Dr. Manhattan.
I've never heard that before, but it's nice to hear.
From Watchmen.
Well,
I like the character mostly because it's a different kind of superhero. I think the idea being that he's basically a god, except that because he exists sort of beyond time, he can see that time is a straight line, and thus he can't change anything. So it's a great debate about determinism versus indeterminism. He's all powerful, except he can't. He knows what he's about to do, and he can't change what he's about to do. So in that sense, he's all powerful and also powerless. Is why I kind of like his character.
I think it would also sucks if you know that you are going to fall from the stairs, and you know it. So yeah. Oh, I'm now going to fall from the stairs. Here I go. Boom, 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 boom. No, but thank you for answering that question. Let's go to the second one. If you can choose 2 parents, which 2 parents will it be? It can again be celebrities, science fiction people, movies, books.
Can I choose my parents?
Yeah, of course.
Just in case they're watching. No. I don't think I replaced my parents. So, because they've been supportive of everything I've ever done. So, I think you can't really replace parents like that. So, that would be my answer.
No, it's a fair and straight answer. So nothing to worry about. Let's go to the third question. What will be your weapon of choice? It can be real weapons or it can be science fiction weapons. And don't say the Death Star. Many people say Death Star or lightsaber.
Weapon of choice. That's a good one. Let me think.
Throwing heads. black hats.
Yeah, because there's so many I could freaking choose. Oh. um. I guess they count as weapons. The replicators from Stargate.
Right, interesting. I think that's
they're more of a plague than a weapon, but I guess if I could use them as a weapon, it would be great because I could,
I think
they're pretty much indestructible. So
it will be a great weapon. Yeah,
it would be.
Well, thank you for answering this question. Yeah, the next one. In a game of scissor, paper, and rock, what will be your first choice?
That depends on my opponent.
Yeah, but
I look my opponent in the eye and think, are they going for rock? Are they going for paper? Are they going for scissors? Maybe I should lie on this just in case someone's watching and they challenge me to rock paper scissors in the future.
Yeah, after the stream, someone is coming to your house. I called him and I will tell him what to do. So yeah.
I'll go with rock. It's the first one. Rock, paper, scissors, rock. There we go.
Everyone chose rock. Rock wins. Dwayne the Rock Johnson. No, but yeah, let's go to the next question. Yeah, you are the first person on Earth to register a hacker name. What will be your hacker name?
To register one.
Yeah, you are the first person on Earth, so everything is possible. Everything is free.
Well, I already have the greatest hacker name, so there we go. It would be Tib3rius with a 3.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer.
So, there we go. That's my hacker name. That's the one I've stuck with. So I'm going to use that.
Well, I think that's a great answer and the only true answer. Always stick with your name. Yeah, let's go to the questions from the viewers. I think there were some questions. Yeah, I have the first one. Do you know assembly? And if you do know assembly, do you recommend to learn it? And does it help a lot?
I don't know assembly. That's like way too low level for me. Like I like high level programming languages like Python. So
we all like Python.
Yeah, assembly is a complete mystery to me. I'm trying to learn some some reverse engineering right now, but so like learning machine code and stuff might help, but right now no.
Well, thank you for answering that question. Let's go to the follow-up question. Oh, you have one question. It's about your college. Yeah, what did you work on for your MSc?
So I built a project for my final, right? I built a custom fuzzing tool using Java. So Java. It wasn't. Yeah, Java's nice. I don't have any qualms about Java. If you want to make burp extensions, do it in Java. It's just much easier. But yeah, I wrote a fuzzing tool, which worked. It worked nicely. It's nothing groundbreaking, so it's not like it's like it got released or anything. But it's supported. You could basically fuzz any kind of thing in an HTTP request relatively easily, and it would generate a report. So it was kind of nice in that way. And it had stuff like it supported loops, so you could loop over different types of different lists of fuzzing payloads, and you could like loop over things at the same time for like 2 different payloads. It's basically almost like Intruder. So at this time I probably didn't realize Intruder existed, and I kind of reinvented the wheel, but there we go.
Well, at least you learned something, so.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that question. Let's go to the follow one. I'm checking. I think I have. Yeah, I have one. When you are testing large web applications, do you first go for the deep pen testing or for the wide pen testing?
It's almost like a combination of both. In terms of like the actual exploration stage, I'm going to be, exploring everything really. Um, so it really depends. Like if there's like a navigation menu on the left and there's like 10 different items and each one has like a sub menu, then there's various ways you could do it. Either way kind of works. You can just go through them one by one, opening up the sub menu, going through those, which I guess would be depth first, or you can just do a breadth first. So you can just click on each of the main categories and see what's up, make notes, and then go through the subcategories later. There's no real difference in terms of time. I'm guessing depth first kind of makes more sense from that perspective, just because you're focusing on the same kind of area in one kind of session. So it might be slightly easier to navigate around. But yeah, I think that's probably the answer there. In terms of like actually testing it, really the testing part is just finding requests that look like they could be interesting for various reasons. Usually that's done by looking at the parameters that the request passes, or the stuff that's included in the response, and working out from that. Okay, trying to figure out the flow of the application. A lot of testing is working out application flows. For instance, your username on your profile page, if you can alter that, that's an entry point of the information. Where does that information flow through the app? So obviously it's going to get saved into a database at some point, but then it might get retrieved from the database on another page. So there's definitely a lot of hopping around, tracking the data, tracking how the data is processed as it flows through the application, and figuring out if there's any way of attacking any of those sort of points.
Well, thank you for answering that question. Let's go to the following one. Do you think that OWASP WebGoat is a good starting point for learning web hacking?
Yeah, for sure. OWASP has a bunch of like vulnerable web apps that they've released over the years. So anything they do is pretty good. There's also, if you want like to learn more modern stuff, then there's Juice Shop, which is a JavaScript heavy app. So that's definitely gonna, if you're used to like opening up and viewing source and looking at the source code of an app, if you try that with Juice Shop, you're just going to get the standard like, oh, it's including 4 different JavaScript files on every single page. And that's because it's basically a single page web application that just loads stuff asynchronously using JavaScript, which is pretty common these days. So that I would recommend. But also, I can't sing the praises of Portswigger Web Academy enough. They just blown the roof off web app like learning recently, like in the last few years. It's a free web academy. You can spin up labs for free. You can try all the challenges, and they do teach you. They have some good learning materials on that site, so I would definitely recommend it.
Well, thank you for answering that question. I see we have 2 more questions, so let's go. Yeah, do you ever use Showdown when you are doing web application testing?
Not really, because obviously the key thing about Showdown is it's basically scanning the internet without you actually having to scan the internet. Usually in a web app engagement, you're given the IPs or the URLs that are in scope, and then you can basically just test them yourself. So whatever Showdown has done, which is basically port scanned those IP addresses, you can just do yourself. So it might be, I guess, useful for historical stuff, but Showdown's great if you're doing more of like an OSINT engagement or an external engagement, and you want to see potentially what those IP addresses had on them in the past, or if there's any information that's being leaked. For web app, not so much.
Well, thank you for answering that question. And yeah, I just need to add, I just had to large because your fellow friend asked you the following question. Please answer it as honest as you can, but prepare your own for this question. Here it comes. Are you made of skin-colored stone, or is your picture just a complete farce?
I saw that in the chat. That's Al. Yeah.
Yeah.
No comment.
No comment. Sorry, Al. I cannot answer it.
That's too private.
Too much important information. He wants to keep it
right.
hidden. No, but I have one more serious question. Yeah. Do you have any tips for reviewing the large JavaScript files that single-page applications use?
Oh, goodness. So, yeah, unfortunately. If you enable, you can configure Burp. Burp has its own JavaScript static analysis engine. So you should definitely play around with that. You can configure it so it like can scan the file for a longer period of time, which is obviously good. Generally speaking, it's just difficult because it is just a massive load of JavaScript in single page apps anyway. So really look for entry points. So usually you can, if you start using the app, you can start seeing the entry points being used if you're proxying the app. So like if you as you start exploring the app, even though like the URL really isn't changing, or it might be changing but with like a URL fragment added to the end, you can still see what the app is calling in the back end. And so you can start searching for those paths in the JavaScript code. And if you can find how the paths are effectively embedded in the JavaScript code as roots, then you can try and find all the roots. So that's one way of doing it. Other than that, there isn't really much, unfortunately, that isn't just massively time consuming. I tend to try and attack the app as I would as a regular app. And obviously understanding that there's potentially going to be more sort of client-side stuff. So there's going to be more DOM XSS potentially. And DOM XSS is so hard to find. Burp does a pretty good job these days of trying to at least point you in the right direction in terms of where the source and sink of that XSS could be. So it's basically highlighting the data flow for you. But a lot of the time that ends up being false positives. So it's tricky. There are other ways. So in Chrome and Firefox, you have a debugger for JavaScript where you can set breakpoints in the code. So if you find a particularly interesting function that you think is handling some code, you can set a breakpoint. Firefox is better than this, better for this. For some reason, Firefox, I'm not sure if I'm just not using Chrome well enough, but Firefox has like a step through button that lets you move like one line at a time. Chrome doesn't seem to. It has like a step into, which I guess kind of does the same thing. It just doesn't feel like it's the same. But you can debug JavaScript. The other thing I like about Firefox is it shows you the values of all the variables that are being set by the function as you step through. So it's really useful for understanding data flow. But it's, yeah, unfortunately, as like single page apps are just a nightmare. The only good thing about them is that usually and I say this with a disclaimer. Usually, the front end code is pretty standard. It's part of a framework, so it tends to have less vulnerabilities. So you can just test it as a normal app via the user interface, and proxy that and look at the requests being sent and attack the web application that way. Because there is a backend, so at some point the requests go to a backend, and that's where a lot of the damage can be done anyway.
Well, thank you for answering that question. I think we are at the end of the questions. I do not see any new questions popping up. So,
cool.
Yeah, I think I think we are at the end of the stream, and you have really done a great job, and and I want to thank you for being here, and I appreciate it that you want to join me on this stream. I hope all the viewers enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I don't know what time it is there for you, but I wish you a great evening, morning, or afternoon, or if you are going to bed, sleep well.
Still afternoon for me, but yeah. No, thank you. Thanks for the invite. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad everyone had some good questions.
Yeah, people always tend to have good questions. They listen good, and they want to know if you if your skin is made of colored stone, or your picture is a complete farce. But no, but
Al can't talk. He has a picture of Link as his avatar, so it's like, there you go.
Yeah, you need to talk to him in private about this. It seems personal. No, but I really want to thank you. Perhaps we can do this again in some couple of months to see how you progress. And I don't know.
Awesome.
And I wish you a great afternoon then, as you said. And I wish you good luck with what you are doing or what you are planning to do now. And
thank you.
Have a great thank you, and have a great work week, as it is Monday. So
right, yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you very much again for having me. It was a lot of fun.
It was my pleasure. And for those who are watching, again, thank you too for watching and for the great questions, of course. And I hope you all enjoyed. And I see you all the next time. And say goodbye to Tib3rius. And for everyone who's watching, have a great morning, evening, afternoon, or sleep well.